vocabulary. All right, so today I wanted to talk about some words that are thrown around a little too liberally these days, including slavery, slave, racial, and racist, and all these different things. So let's just go into racial versus racist to start with, okay? So the definition of racial is relating to race. I'm white, okay? So that is a racial comment, all right? If you happen to walk into a restaurant and there's a lot of Asians in there, by saying there's a lot of Asians in this restaurant, that's not racist. That's racial. It is a racial comment. It's an observation that happens to deal with race. But you don't necessarily believe that one race is better than another. So then we'll go into racist, okay? So racist is a person who shows or feels discrimination or prejudice against people of other races, or who believes that a particular race is superior to another. Okay, so you have to be very careful when you hear all this stuff talking about he's racist or that's a racist comment or anything like that. It's very easy to blur those lines of racial comments versus racist comments, okay? And another thing is, it is stereotype, okay? So there's another very easy thing to say. Right now, one thing that I hear all the time is all white people are racist. Okay, well that is very generalized, number one. And number two, it's a very uneducated and ignorant statement to even say. That's a stereotype again. It's not even a stereotype realistically, it's a generalization. So which is exactly what our problem is in this country. Let's just go to the definition of generalization, all right? So generalization is a general statement or concept obtained by inference from a specific case. Okay, so a prime example. Here's a prime example. I'm going to use multiple different races, okay? You see a white person that's on meth. All white people are meth heads. You see a white person from the backwoods back east, and they're a hillbilly. So all white people are hillbillies. I'm just using my own because that's a very a normal thing. And again, a stereotype, let's do the definition of that. A widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. Okay? So a stereotype is, a stereotype would be like, white people are all hillbillies. They're all backwood hillbillies. Okay? And stereotyping and generalization are very, very similar. Those two go together pretty well. Because a stereotype is a generalization, but more of a characteristic instead of an overall population. So a stereotype is a characteristic, and generalization is just it's overall. They kind of go hand in hand, though, realistically. And that's where you have to be careful, because you could sit there and say the same thing. And a person that I really respect is Daryl Davis. If you don't know who Daryl Davis, please look him up. He's amazing. I think he's visionary. I believe in exactly what he's doing, going out there, seeking out your enemy and talking to them and educating them. And then also educating yourself on their perspective, and then coming to a middle ground of at least respect. And it's amazing what he's done. If you haven't checked him out, check him out. But your vocabulary has to change, okay? Right now, everybody is saying that all whites are racist. Well, that's insane, because literally a tremendous amount of white people had to fight shoulder to shoulder with blacks to end slavery. So you can't say all white people are racist. It's impossible. Number one, I'm in an interracial relationship myself. So I got no prejudices. A little bit difficult to generalize that kind of situation, but you could sit there and say the same thing. Stereotype we'll say a stereotype of, the old, and this is a horrible stereotype, so before anybody gets up in arms about it, all black people are lazy. I know tons of black people who are some of the most driven people I've ever met. They're insane. They've got no quit. They're amazing people. And Daryl Davis happened to be one of them. So therein lies why you have to be careful with your vocabulary on what you're saying. So let's even go further into your vocabulary and go into slave and slavery, all right? So slave, by definition, is a person who is the legal property of another and is forced to obey them, all right? Then we go into slavery, which is any system in which principles of property law are applied to people, which means, again, that you are owned. Slavery is the person is a owned possession. Like, I own this water bottle right now. It has to obey me, basically. I'm super simplifying it, but that's the kind of idea it is. You own the person as a commodity and or piece of property. All right? Now, obviously, slavery is a horrible situation. It should have been abolished centuries ago, but it was a normalized idea worldwide. Now, I'm going to go into the idea of slavery is over 900 years old. Okay, before maritime ships could even make it across the Atlantic, slaves were being sold to Asian-ran countries, Muslim-ran countries through the Sahara and through the Indian Ocean. And the only way to have a commodity that can be sold is you have to have a vendor that's willing to sell it. So you had to have other blacks putting other blacks into slavery. If you really look at the history of slavery, it is centuries, almost a millennia long. And I'm not even going back into biblical times because that's of different beliefs. That's about your belief system and everything else. I don't want to get into that. But the actual slave trade out of Africa is almost a millennia old. Okay? And the idea that, yes, the person that bought the slaves is at blame, but you also have to look at the person who put the slaves into slavery in the first place. You can't buy a commodity without somebody selling the commodity. All right? That you have to have a seller in order to have a buyer. That's just all there is to it. You have to have a seller. So, but we're gonna go off of slave. Okay, so let's even go into the history of slavery in America, or on this soil, I should say. Everybody claims 400 years of slavery. America is not 400 years old. We're not even 250 years old yet. 250 years old would be in 2026. Okay? Because again, America was created in 1776. The first slaves that hit this soil were 1619, yes. But this was a British colony at that point. And the British had slaves centuries before they ever crossed the Atlantic. So you have to understand the history behind something before you can sit here and talk about it. And getting rid of history and getting rid of these statues makes no sense to me. If you don't agree with that statue, I'll erect another statue so that way you can have both sides of the conversation. Here's a Confederate general, they fought for one thing. Here's a Union general, they fought for another thing. These people won, and this is what it created. Talk about it, educate these people. Don't sit here and try and erase history. That's never going to fix anything. And I'm sorry that I get animated about this thing, but the claims that people make are, and the fact that you take, our society in general is a knee-jerk reaction society. We take in information and we let emotion and non-rational, non-logical thought take over. The first bit of information you take in, that's the information. I'm pissed off. I got to go do something about it. How about instead take information and just leave it at that? It's information. But you need to learn the other side of the information before you can have a reaction to it. Okay? It's no different than if I was told I have cancer. Before I freak out, number one, I need to know what kind, what stage, what we're going to do about it, what's the, all the probabilities. I need to know things before I have a reaction, because I'm not going to freak out over something when it could be something that I didn't need to freak out over in the first place. Okay? Now, I'll give you a prime example. My son, my third son, was born, or when he was in the womb, when we had our ultrasounds, he had a CPC. Well, you don't know what that is. There's a black dot on his skull in the ultrasound. A CPC is a choroid plexus cyst. I didn't know that before I'd ever heard the term CPC, but I researched it before I freaked out about it. He also had unilateral clubfoot. So at the same time, I needed to look at scholarly papers, not Wikipedia. I needed to look at scholarly papers to figure out the correlation between CPCs and unilateral clubfoot into other situations. And there is a soft correlation into different trisomies, meaning trisomy 21, which is Down syndrome, trisomy 18 and 13. So I researched this stuff before I had a reaction to it. So then when we went to level 2 ultrasounds, I was already educated and knew what I was looking for. So as soon as we went in, I knew that head circumference versus abdominal circumference, femur length versus humerus length, all those things came into play, and I wasn't panicked once we started seeing things. I was educated before I had a reaction. You guys out here are having reactions before becoming educated. But let's just go back real quick. Okay, so 400 years of slavery in America. That's not true. First and foremost, the first almost 150 years of American of this land was British control. Then we went into the American Revolution. We fought off the British, and we became our own country in 1776. So from 1776 to 1865, there was slavery. Okay, and really the North abolished slavery before then. So there's a ton of whites who didn't believe in slavery, and slavery was already here. If you move into a house and one of the walls is painted purple, and you live there for a little bit, and people come in and are like, why'd you paint that wall purple? The wall was already purple. I didn't paint it purple. I'm going to fix it. I don't agree with the wall being purple, but it was already purple when I moved in, and I have other things I'm trying to get done. So, and I'm not trying to sweep slavery under the rug. I'm not trying to downplay it, but at the same time, you have to understand, to change a mentality that has been ingrained into you from birth, it's very difficult. But under the guide of the idea of what our country was founded on, which is all men are created equal, we have fixed things and progressed forward. We are one of the most progressive countries in all the world. I would love to hear anybody show me some utopia in a modern society with a large population surrounded by other countries that has some utopia with no guns, no anything, and that they're peaceful. It doesn't exist. This idea doesn't exist, okay? So then you fast forward, okay? 1776 to 1865, that's when slavery was in, all right? 1865, slavery is abolished. It's done. A constitutional amendment is put in to abolish slavery, which, ironically, you guys, a lot of people out there are tearing down the statues of the people who fought against slavery, but that's another issue and all that stuff. So let's go into, so that's slavery and slave. Now, your vocabulary in 1865 needs to change into oppression, discrimination, and segregation. That's not slavery. And I am fully aware of the oppression, segregation, and discrimination that not only blacks felt, but Hispanics, Asians, everybody felt. The country was divided. It was always called the Great Melting Pot, but the ingredients were put in and the fire was never turned on. So you always had this separation, all right? Women as well. Okay, so therein lies the problem. So oppression is the prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. Okay, that's oppression. Discrimination is the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people or things, especially on the grounds of race, age, or sex. Then you go into segregation, which is the action or state of setting someone or something apart from other people or things, or being set apart. Okay, so I agree. After 1865, we had all three of those things. But we have progressed again. Okay, nothing was perfect right out the gate. No business is perfect right out the gate. Nothing is as efficient as it can be. Nothing is as productive as it can be. Nothing is as profitable as it can be in its infancy. It has to grow into it. It has to evolve. And it needs time to evolve. Okay? So that's how you need to change this vocabulary. This vocabulary has to change. And here's another prime example. Okay, let's talk about, real quick, capitalism. Okay? So capitalism, an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. This is why I and many people believe that capitalism is really the only way to fix the issues we have. And I will explain it to you. In real, true capitalism, in 2008, when those banks were going under, the government should never have gotten involved. That is their own fault. That is mismanagement and greed that made them expand and overstretch themselves, became vulnerable when the housing and stock market crashed, those banks should have been forced to go under. Everybody would have lost money at the same rate. Those banks would have gone away, and you would have had a Hydra effect. A Hydra effect is you cut the head off of a major situation and other heads will rise up. Okay, so if you had done that and let those banks fall, then you would have had probably 10 to 15 medium to small size bank jockeying for position to get you to come over. They would have incentivized you with better interest rates and longer terms, and they would have been a little bit more flexible with their lending practices, because now there's an open market for competition. But you didn't allow that. You have allowed your government to bail people out. Are they bailing out small businesses right now during COVID? No, they're letting those things go under. And it's not the business's fault. It's your government's fault again. It's going for full circle. Okay, your government is the problem. So let's go into, so capitalism is not a theory. It is an economic and political system. Okay, so let's go into socialism, which is the problem. This is where it's very interesting. The definition of socialism, a political and economic theory of social organization which advocates that the means of production, distribution, exchange should be owned and regulated by the community as a whole. The reason it's a theory is it's never become true. That is a theory. It is a utopian theory. And the reason that it never comes true is if there is power to be had, literally, in the absence of government, or I should say, in the absence of organization, hierarchy, and law, which is basically anarchy, in the presence of anarchy, you will have, it is a precursor every time to tyranny. There will always be the most violent person in the area to rise up and take power forcefully from you. There is no such thing as a socialist country or state that has worked. It has never worked. Because at the end of the day, it breeds inequality. That's what it does. It breeds corruption. It breeds all these different things, because no matter what, someone will jockey for power. Okay, in a capitalist society, your free market is free for you to compete with your labor as far as your skill and all that kind of stuff, and your tenacity and all those things. So companies would even compete to have you come over to them, and companies would compete for your business, trying to make the best product at the cheapest price. That's a free market. That is capitalism in its traditional form. What we have today is not capitalism. Okay, let's make it very clear. Our society today is not a capitalist society. It's not. It is a hollow shell of capitalism, and you are taught to hate it because, again, if you're the government and you want people to believe in big government, and government is the thing that's going to save them, and you want more money as the government, more power, you're going to educate them from infancy all the way to they're an adult. Because by the time they're an adult, it's hard to get those things out. So full circle again, your government standardizes your education system. I'm not blaming teachers. Teachers are just given the tools and they're told to teach, but they're given only the curriculum that they're given. So my issue with it is that you have allowed your government to infiltrate and corrupt every single thing that you're dealing with in your daily lives. Your financial institutions, your education institutions, your economic institutions, everything is controlled and has been given power to your government because you have been conditioned to believe that that is going to be your saving grace, that the government is here to fix all of your problems. Please, sir, fix my issue. Heaven forbid I fix my own issue. Okay, so this is what all I'm trying to get you guys to realize is, number one, check your vocabulary before you talk about something. Okay, if someone says a racial comment, don't call it racist. Okay, if I compare blacks and whites in a race, I can honestly, statistically speaking, say blacks are faster than whites. And a lot of you, that's racist. No, it's not. That's a racial comment, and realistically, it's backed by actual statistical facts. Blacks are faster than whites. End of story. I don't know what to tell you guys, okay? So, again, it's easy to sit here and point blame at different words that are thrown around extremely loosely these days. Everything is racist, everything is this, everything is that. You have to be careful with these ideas and these concepts, because at the end of the day, you are really opening the door to a very slippery slope. And realistically, just be educated before you talk about something. Okay, I'll never argue something that I'm not educated on. All right? And all I did here was I didn't put myself into anybody's shoes. I didn't do any of that stuff. I literally gave you definitions and examples. That's it. Okay? Even my own personal example with my son. So what I'm really trying to get you guys to recognize is that, and I'm not a scholar. I don't have a college degree. I am a business owner and a father and a husband, period. So I recognize, as a citizen of California and a citizen of the United States, that we have a system problem. But our system problem doesn't come from racism. We don't have a systemic racism problem. Okay? If you go look back in history, everybody that was poor was oppressed. Everybody that was poor was oppressed. It didn't matter if you were black, white, or indifferent. They used to call the Irish the dirty Irish. Well, Irish or white. So what? They're supposed to get all up in arms and be mad about it forever? No. You build something out of yourself. So I just look at these things and I look at where people are putting blame and how generalized the statements are, and I'm like, you guys aren't learning anything. You're not educated in any way, shape, or form. And if someone has a question or comment on this video, please put it down here. And if you have a question, if I don't know it, then I will look it up, I will research it, and I don't mean just from one side, I will look at both sides. That's the problem. I'm going to leave it with this, and I'll tell you exactly how far I don't like our system. Our political division is part of the reason that you keep voting in people that, and you have to remember, the people you vote in also get to elect other people. So if you vote bad people in, it is a trickle-down system to where that person then brings in other bad people. Okay? I don't like the fact that we have a two-party system. Okay? And here's why. Because you're already separating yourselves and dividing yourselves right there. Hard line, blue or red, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal. It doesn't make sense. The more labels you put on yourself, the more segregation we freaking have, and the more division we have. And if you're the government and you want more power and stuff, there's a reason that in war, divide and conquer is a legitimate strategy. Okay? And there's a reason that back in the day, united we stand, divided we fall. Those are sayings for a very specific reason. And they're old, long-term sayings. It's because the more divided you guys are, the more bickering and animosities on these subjects, the easier it is for government to get you guys riled up and stop watching what they're doing, or watching look at the child kidnapping rates and pedophilia, all these different actual problems that affect all races and all families. You guys aren't talking about that. You're not talking about it. Why? Because it's a magic trick. They're showing you the left hand while the right hand continues to steal your money and take advantage of you. But hey, this is your problem right here, right here. This is it. Don't look back here. Don't look at this hand. Only look at this one. And I put it in perspective for you because I don't want you to think that this is coming from a one percenter. It's not coming from anybody that it's not a scholarly situation. This is a basic concept that I can see. And if you guys could open your eyes and stop being, illogical with your actions. I don't want to use the word illogical because I don't really like the word, but if you actually stopped, became rational, logical thinkers that wanted to become educated on both sides of the issue instead of one, and just going, this is the way I believe, and if you don't believe this way, then you're wrong and I hate you. I mean, it's there now. And it's crazy to think. You guys are screaming for equality and you're screaming for these things, but you're not willing to have conversations, just open conversations. You're burning businesses to the ground. You're violating people's, civil rights and their lives based off the idea that they don't agree with you. That's crazy. That is insane. That's not only not rational and logical, it's insane. You're literally burning your own cities down which you're going to pay for again anyway. You're burning federal buildings and state buildings down, which guess what? Your taxes are going to pay for. So congratulations on that. You think the government cares that you burn these things down? No, of course not. Because at the end of the day, they're just going to rebuild it on your dime. It makes no sense to me. I mean, it's like getting mad and me breaking this door right here and me going, damn, now I got to go replace the door. I mean, what benefit did that do for me? If I'm mad about something, I need to calm down, rationally think about the problem, figure out a solution, and then execute the solution. I'm teaching my 3-year-old how to identify problems, come up with solutions, and then execute the solution. All you guys want to do is complain about the problem, and a theoretical problem at that. Okay? Again, real quick, let me just end it with this. Systemic racism, okay? Systemic racism, all right? So, or institutional racism, as it were. Institutional racism is a form of racism that is embedded as normal practice within society or an organization. It can lead to such issues as discrimination in criminal justice, employment, housing, healthcare, political power, all that stuff. Okay, fine. However, you can't have institutional racism when you just recently had a 2-term back-to-back black president. It goes against the definition. What you actually have is a systemic problem based off of who you keep voting for. You're voting for people who are corrupt and are only out there for them and the people that their little circles. They're not out here for you. So if you really want to fix your government, here's how easy it would be to fix your government. De-incentivize people to work for the government. Okay? The governor of California makes $175,000 a year. Cut that in half. Boom. You want to be a public figure, then we need good people that genuinely aren't going after it for the money and power. They're going after it because they want to make where they live better. Also get rid of retirement, that if you work for the government for 25, 30 years, you get to retire with full pay and benefits and all that kind of stuff. Get rid of that. That shouldn't be allowed, because all you're doing is incentivizing people to leech off the government forever and not really do anything. So they're getting a big old paycheck. They're probably also, because they have the power, they're also probably on the take somewhere over here, getting other special interest money that way they pass laws and do different things. I mean, it's corruption at its finest. And then at the same time, they're getting all the health care, all the benefits. I mean, look at the governors of these states. They get the governor's mansion, which is, again, I think insane. You should have to buy your own house. Why is the state paying for your home? That doesn't make any sense. Forget that. You shouldn't have to live in your own house, and you should run the state based off of you are in the public trust. You are supposed to be here for the public. And I will give you a prime example because I live in California. Gavin Newsom is basically king of California. He is not a governor of California. In today's technologically advanced world, you could do flash polls figuring out what people wanted. But do we do that? Of course not. It's my way, and I'm king. I'm the only one. I'm going to close everything back down, and I don't care about your economic death. I don't care that more than likely generational entrepreneurship is going to end up being hurt long term, because if you watch a parent lose a company, you're much less likely to want to start your own company and be an entrepreneur. You're just going to want to work for somebody, which again is what the government wants. They want you to continue to either work for them or work for a big company and make your paycheck and pay them their money. You have a system problem. It is not systemic racism. It is a system problem from the top down. And if you want to fix it, de-incentivize people to work for the government. You want to defund something? Defund your government. Don't defund your security system. Okay? At my house, I have a security system on every single door, window. We set it for home. I fund my security system. I fund it as big and bad as I can. Cameras and everything. But if I had an issue within my home with my kids fighting, I'm not going to blame my security system. Okay? If they open the door and the alarm goes off and the police come, I'm not going to blame my security system for doing it. I'm going to look at the problem at hand. I'm going to try and figure out a solution on how to not have that happen anymore. So your government is your problem, not your police. I'm not saying that all police are good. So again, generalization is something that is very dangerous. One bad cop doesn't mean all cops are bad. Okay, it's the same, and you can look back in history how Asian Americans were treated after Pearl Harbor, how Muslim Americans were treated after 9/11. Generalization is a very dangerous situation. Okay, so if you guys want to change your thought, change the way you come at a problem, change your rationale, change your logical thinking. Don't knee-jerk react to things. Educate yourselves and go at it from a different perspective so that way you actually can have change. Because right now, you don't have change. All you have is a bunch of emotions running hot and wild, and this is where we are. And the reason is because it's an election year. They want all this turmoil and confusion so that way you don't actually pay attention to the real issues at hand. The real issues at hand is our economy, its growth, its intercountry relations, trade, bringing jobs back. All those things are real issues. They're the issues that we need to be discussing. Sex trafficking, child trafficking, pedophilia, all these different things. Those are what need to be taken care of. Those are real issues of people getting violated and being taken against their will. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it at that. But I'm hopeful that this video gets some people to think outside the box and want to change. If you really want to see someone think outside the box and change, Daryl Davis. If I ever have a chance to meet Daryl Davis, anybody knows Daryl Davis, if I can, I will fly, drive, do whatever to shake that man's hand. That man right there is a true inspiration as a free-thinking person who is trying to educate themselves on people who genuinely hate him. And I'm telling you right now, you need to pay attention to that guy. He's amazing. And if you want to hear some great economic ideas and stuff like that, check out Peter Schiff, Schiff. He's nail on the. He's just hammering away amazing economic ideas that are bulletproof ideas. So Daryl Davis, Peter Schiff, check those guys out.